Then I get support. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm sorry we're ever so slightly later than planned, which is why I say roughly 7:30, not actually 7:30 on the dot, because there's always some technological disaster that gets in my way on these lives. But I'm absolutely delighted this evening to be joined by Carrie, who is a pet behaviour, a pet grief counsellor. Is that right?
Yeah.
It is a fact of every pet owner's life that at some point around say goodbye to those pets. We're going to have to let them go. We're going to have to lose them. You know, in the vast majority of cases, we are going to outlive our animals, and the grief of that, and I hesitate to use the word trauma, but I think it can be quite a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Leading up to it, going through the process of euthanasia, coming out the other side when you've lost your pet is awful and really difficult sometimes to go through. And I think some people who aren't pet owners don't always quite appreciate the depth of the feeling that we have towards our animals, and don't quite understand how challenging that can be, and for all members of the family. So I've asked Carrie to join us this evening to talk about pet loss, grief, how to cope with it, how to deal with it, how to process that. And I'm particularly interested in your thoughts about the children and how we as their parents and the adults can help them understand the process of death, and how we can help them to memorialize and remember their pets and make it as positive an experience as possible for them, because it is part and parcel of life, unfortunately. So, Carrie, thank you for joining me. I'm really, really pleased you're here. Tell us a little bit about you, what it is that you do. Yeah. What do you do?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And so, yeah, I'm Carrie. I'm a pet bereavement counsellor, or companion animal bereavement counsellor. And I started doing this in 2001. So I've been qualified for like 19 years now. And it all came about when I was working in veterinary practice and seeing patients pass or had already passed. And I thought that there was something missing. You know, we were sending clients home with little to no support, and I just couldn't. You know, I just felt that that was wrong. We needed to do more, and so I did a diploma in companion animal bereavement counselling, and I was hooked. This was what I was meant to do. You know, and I'm very passionate about this topic, and I just really believe that we, as in the veterinary profession, are in the best place possible to support our clients pre and post loss, and that's what I try to do. So I counsel clients pre and post loss, whether it's recent or historic, and it doesn't matter what you lost. You know, it could be an ant farm, it could be, you know, you work in a zoo and you've lost an elephant. You know, loss is a loss no matter the species, and so I'm here to support you no matter what.
Yes. So just before we get, if people have seen this, how can they get hold of you? And
Okay.
you know, to get.
So I've got a page on Facebook, Carrie Kearns Pet Bereavement Counselling, at CK Pet Loss, I think is the tag. I'm on Instagram. I have a website, www.animalbereavementcounselling.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I couldn't condense it anymore. And you can find me on there. There's a little bit of information about me and what I offer. And yeah, I'm really open to speaking to anybody that needs support, because I've been there myself, and I've been there recently. I lost my rat a couple of weeks ago, so you know, I'm not immune to the emotions and feelings. And you'd think doing what I do that I'd be okay. You know, I sort of counselled myself, really, I suppose. So you know, but yeah, I'm always open to talk to people. So Facebook, Instagram, you can find my email address on the website as well, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone about what I do.
Yeah, and I guess it can be for anyone. How, right, at what point would you prefer people to get in touch? Can you support people sort of like through the decision process of, and out the other side and support, or do most people sort of after the fact to talk about it when they realise how hard it has hit them? What's the best time?
It's difficult to say really, because grief is as individual as the person experiencing it. And so I can help people that are facing making that tough decision to say goodbye. And although obviously I can't make the decision for you, I can be the support that you may need and, help you come to terms with what you have to do. But a lot of my clients, I must admit, are usually those that have thought they can manage on their own, that they were doing okay. And then as time goes on, or as they start to reach acceptance, they find that it's just, it's still lingering. It's just a little bit too much for them to handle on their own. And so they contact me to help them through it. For some clients, it could be as recent as, a loss that was a couple of days ago. For some, it's been months down the line, and they're worried that they're not progressing as they maybe should be. But again, there's no timeline to grief. There's no manual for it. So sometimes you just need to speak to somebody that can just reassure you that, you're doing okay, you're grieving, and, this is to be expected.
Yeah, and that the grief over loss is normal. I think that you say that you struggled because you lost your rat, and I think that a lot it's a rat, and that relationship we have with our animals is very individual, very special, personal. So you're absolutely right. I guess the grief and how we respond to that is going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I want to, I'll get your thoughts, is anticipatory. So that grief, we feel that we might not really understand that it has a name. When the vet says, "Oh, he is getting old, but there is something wrong, cancer or arthritis," or even that that your pet's well, don't you? Starts to become a struggle, and a lot of pet owners know that it's coming. How would you describe anticipatory? How would you approach it? What would you tell people?
Yeah. So anticipatory grief is, like I say, it's almost as if you start mourning their loss while they're still here. And as you say, it starts from when you're given a poor prognosis or a grave prognosis, and you realise what this means. And I think, whatever pets we take on, we know that we're, unless it's a tortoise, we know that we're probably going to outlive them, and that's the burden we carry, and it's the price we pay for pet ownership. However, anticipatory grief, in a way, it's useful because it spurs us into action to try and ensure that our pets have the passing that we want them to have. So for a lot of people that lose a companion, it's sudden, it may be an accident, or they went in for a routine appointment and it turned into something serious, and they don't get that chance to say their goodbyes the way they would have wanted. So in a way, anticipatory grief gives you that little bit of a push to say, do you know what? I don't know how much time we've got. We need to make the most of it. This is what I would like to do. It also can rob you, though, of the time that you have left, because for some people, they struggle so much with the thought that every day is a countdown to losing their companion, that's all they can focus on is the end rather than the here and the now. And I know it's easy for me to say, concentrate on the here and now while you have them, when all you can think of is every day or hour that passes is taking off what time you have left. Now, some of the things that I've suggested to clients is things like a mini bucket list. And I say like a mini one because if you didn't complete it all, that can add to your grief and pain, because you think, oh, we never got to do this or that. So 2 or 3 things that you think they would love to do that you can do. Forbidden foods, if the appointment's coming up, if they want that McDonald's, that chocolate cake, whatever was forbidden, it's not now, sort of thing. Another thing that I absolutely love recommending is a photo shoot, because often we're on the other side of the camera And I just think a professional photo shoot, you're on the photo with them, and it's something the photographer captures those moments. And one of my friends actually did a cake smash with her dog, which is brilliant. So she just, literally photographer, cake, the dog just went at it. And it's something you can look back on, and it's a fun, happy memory to treasure. But I do think that anticipatory grief, it's normal, it's natural, and it's scary, because you're thinking, okay, if it was a sudden loss, you almost don't have that time to get yourself worked up about it. You just deal with it there and then. Whereas anticipatory loss, it's like it's building. But now is the time to speak to your vet, ask them what the protocol is, especially now during COVID. What are your options, and trying to put things into place so that the passing and the end is as close to how you would want it as possible, But yeah, I think it's about trying at least to live in the now and make most of the time you have now. I know it's not easy, but just really, writing things down as well that you're worried about forgetting. So like the smell, what do they smell like? Little funny quirks. Things like when further down the line when you're grieving, you may think, oh, I forgot, what they did or what they sounded like. So little things like that you may one day regret not capturing as well.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and I agree that it's possible, isn't it, to see it as a ticking clock, as a time bomb, rather than a time to be treasured. I also fully support the advice that, when it does come to the day of putting them in place, that you have all of your plans in place. And it's something from my perspective as a vet that I do try to bring up with people. Learn more as I've gone on about the process and how we all respond. And to just say to people, this might be a bit morbid to think about how do you want to do it? How do you want them to go? Where do you want them to go? Do you want it to be at home, or do you want to bring them here? Do you want to be with them?
Yeah.
And more importantly, the things like that. Fact, would you like them to have the casket? Lots of different caskets. There's also some really wonderful stuff now, isn't there, with stories that, and I think I completely agree. I think that's really, really important to consider before, at the moment on that day, it was so important to be present, and it's very challenging for us as vets and veterinary thought about afterwards, and I'm trying to have a day in the. So what if somebody came to you and said, okay, Carrie, today is the day, taking them to the vet, what would your advice be? How
it's difficult because it depends on the the circumstances, and I think the main thing is to just give yourself a break, be kind to yourself, because it is a traumatic event, having to say goodbye. And I think it's trying to be as prepared as possible as you possibly can be. So I would say, making sure that you know what's going to happen, that you know what you would like to do afterwards. And so at the time, I think some people, are not like, over the years I've had clients who I was present for euthanasia, assisting the vet, and clients would be crying and they'd be saying, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be crying. And you think, well, no, it's fine. I totally understand. And I think we're so hard on ourselves that we think, oh, I'm in a professional setting, I have to be, I can't cry, I can't show any emotion, I've got to, be cool, calm, collected. But I think we forget, though, that vets and vet staff are only human, and they're struggling. You don't want to say goodbye to your patients either. So I think try to be as prepared as you can be, know what's going to happen, and then hopefully the vet will have discussed with you any potential issues that may crop up and what they would do if such a thing cropped up. But as far as like grief and grieving, it's so fresh that even if I was in the room, I don't think I could give you as much help as I could a couple of days down the line. It's everyone's different with how they process it. For some people, they're quite emotional and outwardly visibly upset. Others are quite collected, but that they just want to leave and just have a cry in the privacy of their own home or what have you. So yeah, it's trying to be as prepared as possible, so you know what's going to happen, what to expect, and that your options. Can you stay? Would you rather not stay? And like I said, just be kind to yourself. You're going through a pretty big deal, and it's not an easy decision to have to make. And whatever you're doing, is right for you. And I said, be kind to yourself, because it is a big thing that you're struggling with.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. People will often apologise for being at the point of we always say, please don't worry. We've all been there. We've all cried over our parents. And so yeah, that's really normal. That's really normal. And I think the other thing that I learned recently that kind of surprised me, but then again, about these things, it doesn't, is some people carry the guilt that they are making that, and they've taken somebody get down. And does that ever your work? And
Guilt is quite a big part of, is the main, I would say, majority of the problems that people come to me with is the guilt of having to say goodbye. People will say to me, I killed my pet, I feel like a murderer, I feel awful. And, they say, like, I feel so guilty that I was the one, that I owned them. I was the one that had to say, look, enough's enough. And I don't think other people tend to realise just what a burden that is on somebody's shoulders to, to actually have to say, look, please end the life of my companion. And when you say it like that, you realise just how big a deal this is. And something else that, I tried to see it from the other side of the table as well, is that, it's a big thing for the vets as well, having to perform a euthanasia. So I think, we need to be mindful of either side of the table. But yeah, guilt is a big thing. So people say, oh, I should have done this, if only I'd have done that, and I always say that the if onlys and the what ifs is like the brain's way of trying to come to terms with what happened, and is trying to change the outcome, even though we know that if we could have gone back in time, we would have done everything the same, And there's a thing called hindsight bias, which is where we perceive past events to have been clearer cut and easier to predict than they actually were. And this is where we say, like, oh, I should have tried that drug, or I should have gone with this, and they feel bad because they feel like they didn't do absolutely everything possible, even though they had. And this is something that, again, we need to be kinder to ourselves, because chances are you did do absolutely everything humanly possible, or everything that was possible for you in your situation. And unfortunately, sometimes and I think we have to try and come away from the idea that I'm trying to sort of take the taboo off the word euthanasia, trying to take the fear out of the word, because it's a good thing. We're able to end the suffering or potential suffering of a companion. And when you think about it that way, guilt is natural, but it isn't a place to stay. It's not fair on yourself to feel that way. It's natural, but it really isn't warranted.
No, I agree. And I when I learnt about that, it made a lot of sense, although it wasn't something that I really considered before. Because from my perspective as a vet, when I'm at the point of advising, I do very regularly, because know, that's my job, to be the animal's voice and say, actually, I'm at the end of the road. I too see putting down as a good thing. People often be a vet because I couldn't find one. That must be the worst down, and and it seems really heartless to say no.
Yeah.
And it is, euthanasia, gentle death, is a good thing, and fortunately part and parcel of our pet journey. But again, those feelings are totally understandable, and sometimes I have to say to struggling, I'll say, right, no longer your decision, and I'm telling you what I'm going to do, and I'm telling you the right thing. Sign there, but I'm telling you that has on a really helped.
Yeah.
And I can, I totally understand that. So we're done. We've been through. The pet is now gone, and like you say, generally a couple of days down the line. So do you have? I guess each grieving process is very different, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no time for it. But what are some of the common find clients? How are you able to?
Sorry, just broke up. Sorry.
That's okay. But my question was, what are the that your clients come again?
Oh, common issue, right?
How do you help them through those? What are some things that you take?
I suppose common things. It's one of the things is people worry that they were too quick to make a decision, that they said goodbye too early. And there's a phrase that I've heard a lot of professionals use that is, better a day too early than a day too late. And I think that's where some of the guilt comes in, because people feel like that they rushed it, especially when they speak to other people. And this is another thing clients will say to me, I was talking to my cousin's neighbour and they were saying, oh, well, we had a dog with that and they did this, and now they had an extra 3 years and this, that, the other. And I just think people mean well, but the main difference there is that is the medical history. The history is completely different. And so I have clients that struggle with the views of other people around them. And one of the main things that I help with is that people will find that when they're upset, when they've lost a companion, they'll tell the friends and family, as you would, because you need the support. And you're met with, well, it's just a dog, or it's just a cat, or yeah, but you can get another one. And those phrases that just really can mean no end. And so I help people that I've had clients that, they've said, look, I've literally left the practice with an empty lead and I've gone to an empty house and I'm really struggling. And they just need that human interaction, that human contact, and to know that somebody understands what they're going through. Now, I always say to people that I can't make this, but I can't take the pain away. I can't make this better, because the only way I can make your situation better is the impossible, and that's bringing back your companion. But what I can do is be the listening ear and the supportive shoulder that you need at this time. And I'll have clients that come to me. I say, like, it might be a very recent loss, like days ago, or it could be like what I call a historic loss, where it's been like maybe up to a year, and people are, they're still struggling a bit. And the main sort of themes, it's mainly like the guilt that they made the decision in the first place, feeling that the decision was rushed or that they were forced into it. Some people worry about, taking on a new companion. They feel bad about that. Some clients feel guilty for having if they have another pet in the household anyway, for loving them when the other one isn't there. They feel like they're neglecting the memory of the one they've lost by loving the surviving companion. And I'll also help parents whose children, they've lost companion animals, and they're trying to, help the children. So what I do is I will send out a pre-consult questionnaire, which they'll ask you things like, how long have you had your pet? Reason for the loss, what you're struggling with the most. And I do that because the answers provided help me to help my clients, because it goes out at least 24, 48 hours before a consult, and then I then begin to sort of formulate a bit of a backstory, and it means we can get straight into a session. A session's usually an hour, and if I've got that information beforehand, it means we can get stuck straight into what you're struggling with rather than catching up, so yeah, it's difficult unless grief is as individual as the person that's experiencing it, and no two losses are the same. Even if my clients were a couple, even though they've both lost the same companion, they're both grieving in their own ways. And I've had this with couples in the past where one partner is further along in their grief journey than the other, and the other's still struggling, and so yeah, I mean, every loss is different, but there are like some common themes, like I said, like guilt, especially about making the decision, anger as well, internally or externally. So yeah, it's there's a few things really, but the main thing is that a lot of the time these people just need to be heard, I think.
And do you find, I mean, I guess talking, but do you find that that's the key, is to just talk it out and talk it through, and this is how you're feeling? Is that thing? Do you have any, I don't know, this isn't my area of expertise, do you have any, is there cognitive behavioral therapy that comes into this kind of thing? Is there practical tips that, I know we're going to talk about the children in a couple of minutes, and I know you've got some really great like activities for the kids to do, but is there anything, I guess I'm that kind of person who would say, right, well, how do I fix this? So I'm willing to tell me that no, is there anything else like practical or?
Yeah, so I mean, the type of sort of therapy, if you will, that I do, it's mainly talking. So I think that's the main thing, is that pet bereavement counselling especially, it isn't something that I can say, right, you are feeling you need to do this, this or that, and then you will feel better. It's more having people talk to me and be able to express their feelings without judgment and without being rushed. And I will reflect back to my clients, and the way I do things is that I give clients a different perspective. So they'll come to me and say, oh, the vet offered to put in his gastric tube in, and they're off the back legs and they're urinating everywhere, but we carried them outside, but I do feel I should have carried on, or should I have gone with that or the other? And I'll give people a different perspective. So I'll say things like, well, you could have gone down that road, but then would that benefiting them or benefiting you? And in a way, I'm blunt, but not to the point of, obviously I'm not horrible, otherwise I'm in the wrong job. But I'm straight talking with people. I don't sugarcoat it, because I think, we need to, I think that's the thing. I think so often people outside of the practice will sugarcoat it to make it more palatable for people to deal with. Whereas I tend to get into the nitty gritty, and it's like, look, let's talk about it. Let's say the D word, death, died, and the euthanasia. We'll talk about the hard stuff, and people get it off the chest. And there was one lady who, she first got in touch with me about 4 years ago when I first started doing this, like as a business. And she said, when I lost my dog, she said it was a no-brainer. I was going to come to you because you helped me 4 years ago. And I thought, well, and I've spoken to other people who said, it really helps just being able to talk about it. And I will offer practical advice that people can try. For instance, there was a gentleman who was struggling with anger. And I said, your anger, you need somewhere to go, And he said, well, I used to do kickboxing. I said, well, book a spar session, have a sparring session with somebody, get it out. It's in a controlled environment, you can really let yourself go. I said even axe throwing if you wanted, you know, just something to get it off, get it out. Sorry?
To release that pressure, I guess, must have been quite.
Yeah. So trying to release the emotion in a controlled and safe way, so without harming themselves or others, and channeling it into something that that person already finds enjoyable. So for some people, they enjoy journaling or scrapbooking. So one lady lost her dog. She said we used to visit all these different cafes, and I miss doing that with them. And I said, well, you could still visit these cafes, but you could write a journal as if they were with you. So write what you think they would think of where you are, you know, and write to them through the journal. I think I'm out of stock at the minute, but I do like a little pet loss journal for children. It's just an A5 notebook, but it's something for adults, children, whoever, to write down the feelings. Because I like journaling. I think that's quite therapeutic, because you can write to your companion, or you can just get down onto paper what you can't say out loud. For some people that are artists, you know, use your mediums to release any pent up emotions, painting, pottery, ceramics, what have you. And, you know, it's about trying to find a connection with the client and trying to sort of channel their grief into something that, one, they've got a focus for. So providing a focus, because that's another thing when you're grieving, and you know the thoughts are everywhere, and it's like a big ball of, you know, tangled ball. So I'm trying to pick it all and just put it into neat little sections and help somebody focus. So things like that, journaling, art, you know, even just going for a walk, you know. You know, some people say, well, I miss going for the walks, and so, well, you could still do it, just maybe go on a different route. If going the same route without your companion is too hard and too painful, go a different route. But then you could take photos or just journal about your trip as well. So things like that.
Yeah, I love that everybody's grief journey, what you can help them to realise what's there, get them that ways.
Mm.
Yes, that memorial, doesn't it, as well? That you have your people, have those memories of that time, part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's where somebody like you really comes in, talk it through, and like say, pick out those little bits that are gonna pick that little thread and help people along that journey. You know, to them, because it all come back. It all through it. They're a big but for so I discussing children, because often have, you know, we lose that without, they might have grown up together, you know, kids do process their emotions. So tell me, so when it comes to, and I guess when we're talking about children, you know, we are talking, I think most people are talking about, I don't know, somewhere between the ages of 6 and early 10, something like that. That, you know, especially the real, they don't really have, and then any older than that, probably big adult. So how do you help?
Okay, so yeah, children. So when it comes to children, my advice is age appropriate honesty. Always be honest. And when I say age appropriate, I don't just mean physical age, I mean emotional, mental age too. Because this is a big thing. I remember when I was about, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe, or maybe older. My granddad's black Labrador Bruce had what I found out was like cancer, a cancer in his intestines, I think. But the way my mum described it to me, bless her, was that he had these little creatures inside eating him, and that he died because these horrible, and all I could imagine were these little gremlins inside Bruce eating him, and I couldn't stand it, and I figured that it was just her way of trying to explain cancer, but trying not to frighten me, but at the same time just scaring the life out of me anyway. So I think age appropriate honesty is the key, definitely. And I'll see on some pet loss groups where people say, "Oh, we've told the kids that the dog's gone to live on a farm, or they've gone to live at the vets, or they've gone on holiday." And I just think I understand why, because it's horrible having to tell your child that their pet has died, but it needs to be done. There's no way around it. It has to be done, and it can be done in a kind way. You don't have to just blurt it out. But when you say that your pet's gone to live on a farm, or they've run away, or they've gone on holiday, in all of those situations, the pet can come home. And to me, I would find it more painful to see a child pine for a pet that we know will never come home than to tell them their pet has died, what that means, and how we're going to help them through it. When I lost my rat the other week, I had my 4-year-old daughter with me, and we took him in because he'd broken his back leg and he was developing some neuropathy issues, and he was an elderly boy, and I wasn't expecting to bring him home, to be honest. And my little girl kept saying, "Oh, that hurt leg, he's poorly," and she'd like, "Doctors help him." I said, "Yeah, the doctor will help him." And we were walking around like pets at home. She's like, "I wait for rats," and I said, "No, darling." I said, he's died." I said, "He was very poorly and he's died, and the vet is, taking care of him now." And she's like, her bottom lip started trembling, and she just burst into tears. And I said, "I know." I said, "Mum is upset too," and I was crying, and she's crying. And I thought, well, I couldn't have her believe he was coming home, because that would be more painful to witness. And then I said, "Look, at some point we will take on some other rats." And so that perked her up. And then she forgot all about poor little Christopher then. But it is definitely better to be honest with your children. And it will, and I have parents say to me, "I try to be strong for the children. I don't cry in front of them. We don't talk about it." And I'm like, why? Why shouldn't they see you upset? For a lot of children, the loss of a companion animal is their first experience of death. And the way we handle it now and help them to cope will help them to develop coping mechanisms for other losses. Because imagine, they lose a companion animal, and then all of a sudden they lose grandma or granddad, and then it's like, "Oh, well, granddad's gone to live on a farm. That's what happened to the dog," and you just think we're well, again, I suppose it's like the sugarcoating. We're trying to soften the blow, but at the same time, though, we're just prolonging the pain in a way. We need to stop being scared of the D word, really. And it hurts, and it's horrible seeing your children cry and know that you're the one that had to tell them. But it's how you come to terms with it as a family. And so, you talk to your children, you explain what death is, and euthanasia. I did a little children's leaflet called The Brightest Star, which explains the euthanasia process for children, explains, what the word means and what can happen, and just sort of, a child-friendly version. And, it's because they have I think it's important that children know what happens and that we support them through it. So there are a lot of lovely children's books out there that support children with pet loss. One of my favourites is Megan's Journey by Janet Peel. I absolutely love that story. I took it into my son's primary school, and they said, "Oh, would you like to read it to the class?" I was like, no, because I will cry. I was like, "You read it and I'll just, and then there's The Invisible Leash by Patrice Karst. That's beautiful. And another one I read recently was Dodgy Dog Says Goodbye by Karen G. That was, oh my goodness. I'll do this for a living and I'm reading it. I'm not crying. But they're so sweet. But yeah, so we need to, if you feel upset, and you feel like crying, it's okay to cry in front of your children. And I think there's a fear that we're worried that we're putting too much pressure on our children, that if we cry in front of them, they'll feel that they don't know how to react, that, they feel that they have to comfort us and they're not emotionally or mentally ready for that. But what I'm saying is just show them that it's okay to cry. It's okay not to cry. This is how, this is how mummy's processing this loss. Daddy doesn't do it the same way, but he still feels it. And, allowing children to ask questions as well. Kids love questions, don't they? Constantly. Why though? Why? And it's important that you have some answers, because they're asking these questions because they just want to know. Because then, once we've satisfied the little minds about the questions, and they'll be off playing. Kids are quite resilient, I think. Like I said, my little girl was off playing. She found a LOL sticker and she's off. You know what I mean? So but I was glad I was honest with her, and we had a cry, and then, and she'll still bring him up. It's only been a couple of weeks, and we talk about it as and when she wants to, because she needs to. So yeah, it is difficult, and it's horrible that, we have to, bring up the topic of death with our children. But unfortunately, it is something that they will have to face at some point, and it's just setting those foundations for them to develop healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I love that. This will be their first experience of death, and not to put too much pressure on us as grown-ups, but how they cope with, how we help them to cope with that for a really healthy, lifelong approach to grief and loss. I love that. I love being honest. I love, using the real word and not like they're using social media.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they can understand. We don't infantilize the language, do we? Because they can understand. You're right with my children. We've discussed it a few times. We've not lost a major pet, but we have two kids. So often one of those goes missing or something like that with farm, so it and they cope really well with that. And because I have quite a practical attitude towards pet loss and death, hopefully they will too. So to have that honesty, that openness, and like you say, when they bring up, to talk to them about them again, and I guess that memory and share the memories, because funny things in their heads at funny moments, and they blurt things out. And we've got how I saw on your website today work with to make a soft toy.
Yes.
Buy. So what are your practical? This is how my mind works. What are your practical suggestions for moralize and remember?
I collaborated with Michelle, who runs Create a Cuddly Friend party packages. She's on Facebook. We do the Brightest Star package. So she does these fantastic Build-A-Bear type toys, which you actually stuff yourself at home, which are fabulous. And so what we said is, children could pick their own. They can stuff it themselves, and you can either put a little sachet with some fur in it, or even the ashes in the bear, which then the children can hold and keep and sleep with at night, and it's a little comfort. So there's the toys. I used to do, I haven't done any for a while, but we used to do little memory boxes for kids. Anyone can do this. It's literally just get a plain shoebox filled with pens, glitter, maybe not glitter, sorry, mums and dads, stickers, and let your kids decorate it however they want. and then they can fill it with little bits that remind them of their companion, you know, like a ball or a pebble they've seen on a walk that they think the pet might have liked, and you know, and it's something that's theirs, and they've decorated it and they've put their love and effort into it, and it's something for them to keep. Another thing is just trying to think, like, you know, trying to get your kids involved in some way as well. So if you had, you know, like when you hear stories of, you know, when we were younger and say someone lost a hamster and it was buried in the back garden and the kids had made a little cross out of twigs, and, you know, you could even do like a mini like funeral for them, even if they're not being buried on your property. You could still hold like a mini service that the kids could create, you know. Kids could create, write a story, paint a picture to their pet. I do a thing where, see, I'm all for honesty, and this is going to sound really contradictory, and it's not really. This is, to me, this is like the magic of the Tooth Fairy on Father Christmas. I do a letter from in you know, from the pet to the child, which I know age appropriate honesty, but this is, to me, is like just keeping that little bit of childhood innocence going just a little bit longer. So I do a letter um, from the pet to the child, and it'll say something like, you know, I'm really sorry I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, but I'm really happy, I've got lots of friends, and I'll ask the parents to give me a little bit of information specific to their pet. So one, it was a dog that used to love collecting massive pebbles on the beach, and I'd say something like, oh, you know, there's loads of pebbles here and they're all massive and I can fit them all in my mouth and it's amazing and I love it. And just little things like that that are unique to that companion and that child, so that they can read it and it gives a little bit of comfort, you know. And it doesn't give the impression that the pet's going to come back. It's just, it's like writing a letter to Father Christmas and it going to Lapland and then you're getting a letter back. You know, it's just a little bit of, you know.
And for a certain age child, that would work beautifully. I
Yeah.
idea of I like the idea of a service or getting the children involved in the memory of them, and it also helps to finalize the situation, doesn't it? And to sort of say, this happened now, they are gone, you know, and I don't know, I guess to move on, not that you'll never talk about them again or remember them again, but this is our way of, you know, honouring them, memorialising, and acknowledging they existed and that we loved them. Okay, that they, you know, but also to accept they are now gone. I guess it must be part of that acceptance process as well, mustn't it?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had a hamster and they put a little cross or those rocks that are around everywhere at the moment, aren't they? To find and rock and leave it out. I think, you know, something to just mark the occasion, life, and the love, and then you know, move forward, not on. But, Carrie, I could honestly talk to you all night about this because I think it's such an important subject, and I think we definitely don't talk about it enough, and it is part of the persona, you know, to have to eventually say goodbye and to know that people like you are available to talk to process. And I guess, I mean, what I would finish by saying is, I would say to people, from my perspective as a vet, please talk to us about. It's hard to bring it up in a conversation. I try to now preempt that and talk about it, but ask us the question: when are they going to die? Ask us that question. You know, when we say we've got arthritis or we've got diabetes, or, you know, or we've got diseases which they can survive a long time, or we say, I'm very sorry, there's a cancer here, it won't be as long. Ask us how long, and we will. Even if we can't tell you exactly, we will give you some idea, and that starts that process and that journey. And ask us lots of questions about how euthanasia happens. And that's where my expertise, my skills come in. But you know, are struggling, it's okay to struggle, and are having a tough time, that's normal. And that's where people like Carrie come in to help with that process of grieving and loss. So Carrie, what would your final thoughts be on?
Well, so pet bereavement and companion animal loss is, like I said, it's a topic I'm very passionate about. And so I would just like to say that my personal motto is that loss is a loss no matter the species, and that your loss is valid. It matters because they mattered. And it doesn't matter whether, like I said, could have been an ant farm or a worm farm. It could have been an elephant or a blue whale that passed. If they mattered to you, their loss matters. And there are people like me out there that truly get what you're going through, and there's no judgment. We get what you're going through, and there's no judgment, there's no rushing, and you are free to talk about them and know that not only have you been heard, but you've been understood as well. And please, you may encounter people that will say, oh, it's just what have you. If you've never had a bond with an animal, then you won't get it, but that doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong for feeling the way you do. However you feel is natural, is normal. You're not going mad, you're grieving. And if you're struggling, then there's people like me out there that are more than happy to talk to you and help you through it.
I love that.
Thank you.
You will be listening. I love that.
Yeah.
Really great place to leave it in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is part and help. So I could forever. But thank you.
Thank you.
It will be available to watch again on Facebook, and for all of Carrie's links in her website and her Facebook page for that and her that. But if you have lost a pet and you are, whether it was 2 days ago or 2 years ago, I think talking to someone like Carrie would be amazing to you. So reach out, because there are people here that can help. So thank you, Carrie. Again, thank you so much. This has been thank you everybody for watching. It's great to see you all.
Thank you.
Very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.